Mandy calls Joe Budden a narcissist and makes fun of his whole operation, takes shots. I'm telling you, this was a passive-aggressive effort by Mandy B, the seven-figure podcaster helming from the Black Effect Network. For those of you that don't know, Mandy and Joe Budden have had a years-long up and down seesaw, hot and cold, back and forth ever since Mandy signed to the Joe Budden Network. Oh, remember the whole Olivia situation, her going back and forth with her. And then on top of that, Mandy and Joe would have issues because Mandy thought she should be able to run ads on her show, even though Joe Budden specifically told her we don't do ads. She felt hurt, she felt betrayed, and now she's trying to get it back in blood. But on this episode of Selective Ignorance, don't be fooled by the YouTube numbers. The audio numbers go crazy, if you can find them, that is. She calls Joe Budden a narcissist and says Joe released the numbers because he wanted to pump his chest out as a result of that list of streamers, where the streamers revealed how much they get paid and shared their earnings. She says Joe wanted to be part of it. He wanted to share, like, I'm the big dog kahuna in the space. On top of that, she also says that she would never do business with Joe Budden again, but she would work with Ian. And she reveals that towards the end of her time at the Joe Budden Network, she talked to Ian, not Joe. We'll get into why that's significant later. She then gets into the $1.5 million that he's allegedly, well, not allegedly, the New York Times reports that he's paying his staff within the $20 million that he generates for the year off his podcast. Mandy then gets into her super pocket watchy bag and says that the staff may now feel like they should make more because they're on a podcast that generates $20 million a year. That's right. Maybe they should feel like maybe they should get $4 million or $5 million out of that $20 million. I don't know what she's hinting at. But we got to be specific and clear. Mandy is very tactful in kind of engaging in the non-committal answers. Like, she's steering this conversation in a way where she's not saying things directly, but she's guiding the perception of how she wants the network to look. Then Mandy says the rest of the staff is working full-time hours. I don't know about that, Mandy. 2 full-time days, is that full-time hours? Sounds like a part-time job to me. And if you're making 6 digits, I don't see nothing wrong with that. She then takes a big shot at Melyssa Ford, saying that Mel should get a wardrobe and makeup budget, joking that it's clear she doesn't. Obviously, she's trying to make light of the fact that maybe Melyssa Ford be looking busted in her eyes, and if she had a budget, she wouldn't be appearing like that on the show. But Melyssa Ford's still a baddie. We got to call it what it is. She then really starts to lay the groundwork and the framework for how the Joe Budden Network isn't, really. I mean, I think she thinks it's a network. In the past, she said that it's not really a network because it just has one show. But I would say Joe is just redefining what a network is. I mean, it has a ton of content. It has Pod Wives. It records 3-hour pods several times a week. And to me, that's a network. And it even had other shows like The Pull Up. Don't forget to see The Thing Is catalog. And remember, Mandy, he was making residuals off of you. I know that hurt. And I think that's why she's trying to make commentary on his podcast deal now. But we also have to examine some of the back channels, some of the things that's going on in this dynamic between Mandy and Joe. When she said she would never do business again with Joe, I couldn't help but think of the time she said that she told Joe about the breakup with Bridget because she felt like he needed to know. Oh, how kind of you, Mandy. But she also said she was trying to get a steak dinner from him.
I apologized to Joe in private. And I said, Joe, you deserved every right to know that this business was dissolving. However, if you want to know what actually took place, I was trying to get a T-bone steak.
What? So you hate this man. You said you want to hate him more than you do. You say that you have a love-hate, but you want to talk to him at dinner? That man ignored your text, I assume, and he knows that he doesn't want to be around you because towards the end of your time at the Joe Budden Network, you were talking to Ian. That tells me Joe was probably like, I don't want to talk to you, girl. I know how you get down. You trying to bust a move. I see what's up. This is all my opinions. Everything here is my opinion. I'm not trying to hurt nobody, defame nobody. This is just my thoughts, how I perceive it. Also, with this commentary, like I hinted at earlier, she is trying to position Joe as not having a real network akin to Charlemagne. Oh, Ian is the one pulling the strings. Joe, I don't really... See, I talked to Ian. Joe wasn't really doing nothing. It was all Ian. Mandy has a history of trying to sabotage Joe Budden. Remember, she was on Twitter telling Mandy, hey, you should be making sure you get paid from the basketball game. She even was, to me, the person who told Flip that he had more bargaining potential because of his previous success in media. Come on. I don't know about all that because I think Joe kind of made Flip hot again. Now, I'm not saying Flip wasn't hot before, but when he got on the show, that's when he started to stabilize his network. Let's not forget, Mandy's always hanging out with Ish. Ish has appeared on her podcast several times, despite the fact that Joe doesn't really like Mandy.
As y'all know, love Ish down.
And we all know how much Ish and Mandy seem to define other people's value by how much money they make. That's all they do. You hear Mandy always talking about, oh, does he got a crib? Does he have a basketball? Is he bouncing? Is he making money? Then that's the person. Even on this episode, she was getting a little funny. She was talking about, nah, the big three players don't make no money. Yo, I wanted to go to the Zaza Pulia game. She actually said she went to the Zaza Pulia party. I was like, oh, you went to the Zaza Pulia party. Look at you, girl. And we can all but infer if Mandy and Ish are getting together, they are talking about how much Joe is paying Ish. It's just the way of the world. Mandy is trying to sabotage things, but little does Mandy know, when she sabotages things, she's actually helping everything, because if somebody can sabotage something, that means it's not long for lasting. But I don't think she knows that. She also hates on Joe in this episode, like I said before, to champion her bosom buddy Charlemagne, who is the reason she got an alleged 7-figure deal. All I know is Mandy was talking about on Spaces she was going to sign a 7-figure deal in July or something like that. And I truly do wonder if that Black Effect Network is giving out 7 million deals, 7 million figure deals. I don't know. That's a lot of money for a podcast that does 2,000 views, 3,000 views on YouTube. Now, I could be fooled. Maybe the audio numbers is crazy. But Mandy's never really been transparent about what she makes outside of that Gumball Media deal with Bridget Kelly for See the Thing Is, which Rory helped her get in the days before the podcast bubble popped. Now, I say Rory, I mentioned Charlemagne because she always is. I think here's what it is. Mandy's a great networker. Don't necessarily think she's the greatest podcaster. Now, I'm not saying I'm a great podcaster, but if you look at the stuff she's done solo, to me, they seem like flops. That's how I see it. And we will have to see how Joe Budden responds, because I do think Mandy opened up a 6-pack of hate like Stone Cold at WrestleMania in the 90s. Let me know what you think. And I also wanted to end with something. So recently, Mandy and Weezy, they released a book on Charlemagne's Simon & Schuster book imprint. And I couldn't help but think, guys, are podcasters hacking the book system? Now, I don't have the inside tea, but I'm just making some observations. So, Mandy and Weezy, I have no problems with Weezy, but Mandy, she kind of talks like she's the it girl. She has that je ne sais quoi, but I feel like there's some things going on. So, Mandy and Weezy, they write a book. Actually, they don't write a book. They have somebody else who writes the book. I guess they curate the book. They put it under like self-help or some type of category like that. It becomes a New York Times bestseller. So I start thinking, wait a second. It seems like every time somebody does a book for the Black Effect Book Network, They become a bestseller. Now, I'm trying to do the science. Is it strategic timing? Do they find a way to release things? On top of that, Dawn Staley, the WNBA player, she released a book on the Black Effect Book Network. So I think next time Jess Hilarious makes a book, Lauren LaRosa makes a book, and it happens to be on the Black Effect Book Network, it's going to be a New York Times bestseller. I don't know about you, but back in my day, New York Times bestsellers used to mean something. It's kind of like Rock Nation. Well, not Rock Nation, Live Nation. You telling me every tour that Live Nation does sells out? Something's going on. Something's fishy. And I think Charlemagne has figured out a hack. They're gentrifying books. But, I got to do my science on that. I got to get to the bottom. I got to call up some New York Times bestseller people. I got to see what's going on. I just been noticing a trend of how it looks to me. Every time Charlemagne does a book, New York Times bestseller, I think he's hacked the system. And I do genuinely hope someday we get some transparency from all of this. But to summarize, Mandy went on her podcast, Selective Ignorance, one of the biggest podcasts in the country, 7 figures it made, allegedly, and trashed Joe, calling him a narcissist. She also said she would never work with Joe again, hinted that Ian is the real brains of the operation, says that the cast might feel entitled to more than $1.5 million because the pod makes $20 million a year, and said the pod makes them work full-time hours. I still think it's part-time hours. She took a shot at Melyssa Ford and how she appears on the show. So that was the summary of what happened. Do you think Mandy's being genuine? Do you think she's trying to sabotage things? I think when Mandy has an issue with somebody, she tries to sabotage things, but especially via relationships with other people. But from my experience, from witnessing it firsthand, you got to just thank Mandy when she gets into that bag. Yes, sabotage away. Disconnect me from the people that might be my downfall down the line. All right, y'all. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. Follow me on Patreon, The Stop. Shout out to the 7-figure podcasters. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.